Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Jenna Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Hey guys, Jenna here, and I am so excited to announce that the Holistic Human Performance Virtual Wellness Center is officially launched. Yep, that's right. We've officially launched. And this is like having a holistic health and energy coach in your back pocket. If you need a 5-minute reset, okay, great. What do we have? You need breath work. Okay, great. You need a little bit of mobility flow, nutrition coaching. Great. You can access all of these on-demand videos and self-paced digital courses for a 5-day free trial. That's right. I'm giving this to you guys for a 5-day free trial so you can try it out, see if you like it, see if it works for you, and see if it actually is conducive to your lifestyle and it helps you to create change. It is literally like having me in your back pocket. So again, I'm giving you this for a 5-day free trial. Head on over to holistichumanperformance.co and get your free trial today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Bradshaw, and today we have a special guest. We have Sharon Mcdermott here with us today. She is the author of Unleash Your Inner Goddess: How to Experience an Empowering Pregnancy, Labor, and Birth. I am really excited to take a deep dive into this topic, especially with her experience. She's an acupuncturist, an herbalist. She's an entrepreneur. She owns her own practice, Healthy Healing, and she truly focuses on women's health, fertility, stress, and pain reduction. And she's also a birth doula. So I'm really excited for this topic. It's been a long time coming. I've been looking for the right person, and the universe brought you to me to discuss this topic with someone who has a vast experience in all of these layers when it comes to women's health. And, not only just women's health, but health in general from an Eastern medicine perspective. And without further ado, Sharon, welcome.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Yes, I found you through a Newsday article, so that was really interesting, finding out about your journey.
Which is so cool. I
Yeah.
love how that even transpired. I read your email and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Okay, cool. So guys, if you're scared to share your story, put it out there because you never know what door will open.
Yeah. And just saying that, it was a little scary at first, me writing the book, because I knew that I would have to talk about myself, which isn't always an easy thing to do.
Right.
And so I started it off with talking about my pregnancy journey and what happened with me, and then my journey in becoming a birth doula. So that started off the book. And by the way, I had an editor help me, which was just, unbelievable, because I couldn't have written the whole thing by myself. I had to really have her help me pull it together. So, that's how it's kind of started. But my impetus was because of what I was experiencing when supporting women, mostly in hospitals. At that point, I had not really done any at-home labor. So some of it was very good, but some of it was not so great. And really, overall, even with women coming into my office who were seeking fertility treatment or treatment during pregnancy, they didn't particularly seem very confident or empowered to either go through the pregnancy or go through the laboring process. So that's really why, I wrote this, and to give education, and also obviously to give women faith and confidence that they can do this on their own. They just need some tools to do that. So that's why, again, I wrote the book, and I give various different things. The goddess theme came up because I felt like that was something that people can relate to, certain archetypes of women. We've heard about it a lot with fertility and harvesting, that kind of thing. So I brought those, goddesses into the book. But then, of course, I talked about Western medical treatments and Chinese medicine treatments, and also your own patient rights as to what you can ask for, what you can refuse as far as treatment. So that's the
That's
gist of
so
the book.
important. Beautiful. And I've literally been recommending it to so many of my clients who are literally on the motherhood, fertility journey. I'm like, you need extra resources. Read as much as you can, listen to podcasts, listen to people who have knowledge in both sides of the fence. When it comes to Western and Eastern medicine, and make a decision based on your body. Don't be pigeonholed into something that doesn't work for you. Like, just because it's protocol doesn't mean it's for you. And I love that you incorporate that, because that is so crucial. It's taking your power back, truly.
Absolutely.
I love that. So why don't you tell us about your journey and how you even got into Eastern medicine, becoming an acupuncturist, and just your journey. I really I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. So just a little bit background. I was a professional dancer, singer before I got into this. And then I always had, day job kind of things.
Right.
But I decided to go back to school and did my undergraduate at Hunter College, and then was looking for something else. And anyway, a friend of mine introduced me to acupuncture. So I went into acupuncture school. I got treated myself because I was having a lot of sore throats, getting colds, congestion, all this kind of stuff. So it really helped me out a lot between the acupuncture and the herbs. So I did that for quite a few months, probably more like 4 or 5, and then I was enrolled in the school. So that was a long process. I didn't realize I was going to have to go through after just doing undergrad, but it became a 5-year process because I also got pregnant in the middle of that. Of course, getting married, getting pregnant, all that stuff. I had a great pregnancy. I was considered somewhat of an older mom. I was 36 when I got pregnant. I actually had a miscarriage before that, but got pregnant rather quickly again. And then my baby boy was doing fine, but he was not wanting to turn around. So at 36 weeks, they're like, well, he should be like turning now, and he's not. And I was doing some Chinese medicine stuff, moxibustion on this one particular point on the little toe, but he didn't seem to be wanting to move. They did 2 external versions. He still wasn't. I mean, he would move, but then he'd go back. So that was like in 1999. They still were doing what would be called like partial breech presentation. He was actually in a full breech. I guess sometimes a full breech is actually easier, but anyway, they weren't going to do it as a vaginal birth.
Right.
So I was, saying, they were saying to me, you probably going to have a cesarean. So that was very devastating for me. I really didn't want to have a cesarean, but I did. And he was fine. He came out healthy. He did have some hip issues, so we had to wear a brace for a couple of months.
Oh, wow.
Soft brace, because he had what's called hip dysplasia. So I explained all that in the book. And so that was difficult. It was really hard. It was hard breastfeeding. I got mastitis. I mean, all the things that could happen kind of happened.
Yeah.
And at that time, I really didn't have a lot of support. If you remember, like my mother's generation, I mean, she's in her 80s now, but when she had children, they were pushing formula milk. And not that formula milk is bad as a supplement in some cases, but they weren't even encouraging breastfeeding. So my mother didn't really have any idea about breastfeeding, even though she came to help me out a little bit. And then she had to go back to work. So I was really pretty much on my own. So, today there's a lot more support with, chat groups and all that kind of stuff. It's really a lot different. I didn't know anything about birth doulas, postpartum doulas. I probably could have really used a postpartum doula. I did have a lactation consultant, and that was somewhat helpful, but it still just wasn't enough. So, I had experienced a lot of things that I would hope that other women, it would be an easier, journey. So, with that, with the acupuncture, once I graduated, I started practicing, and then I kind of got into doing more of the women's health in my practice. I still do pain management and other things, and I treat men too. But this is just something that I found rewarding when someone got pregnant, and then went through, in many cases, through the whole pregnancy with me. But then I didn't see the baby at the end. So that's when I got certified in like 2012, but then I really didn't do anything with that because my practice was pretty busy. And then uh, I redid it again in, I think it was 2017. So that point, and there was no support really also for getting jobs as a doula. It's kind of difficult. It still is kind of difficult, believe me. Um,
I've heard
yeah,
from a couple of friends who are doulas, like I've heard it's very challenging to get
yeah,
that business going.
yeah. One of the things is that it's kind of an extra. But there's a great site, Be Her Village, which she was a doula, this woman, Caitlin. She started doing this thing where you could, instead of buying all these kinds of baby gifts and toys and whatever, you could actually get services like a doula. So anyway, I think that's a great idea.
Me
Just
too.
giving her a little plug. Um, so yeah, so I mean that's why I went into doing the doula thing, and then I started practicing. Like I guess it was in 2018, and I got fully certified. So it was really interesting for me to see. It's a beautiful experience when you see birth. You just cannot believe how what we do in terms of bringing a baby into the world. Um, I guess sometimes more than one, but
Right.
generally I'm seeing singletons. But it's just an amazing thing that our bodies can do. And unfortunately, we've been disenfranchised a lot about our own bodies. And so I put a little bit of, the Me Too movement in here in my book. And again, the things about the archetypes of women, how to be strong and how to have courage, and um, women who are sort of these fierce warrior types like Tarana Burke of the Me Too movement. I mentioned about Nancy Pelosi. She's another one who's just, an incredible woman who basically presiding over pretty much 70% men in
Mm,
Congress, and how she
hmm
was able to bring people together. So, you know, taking all these aspects and putting it together in the book, but trying to show women that, you do have resources at hand. And sometimes you just don't know inside you what you really have until you're kind of tested, right? Until you um, are really given us a life challenge. And in a way, giving birth is kind of like a life. It's a beautiful thing, but it is kind of a life challenge that you're going through that. And we used to have our immediate family around us more. Some people still do, but I mean, in terms of maternal care, way back, it used to be your aunts and grandparents, grandmothers and people like that who would kind of be around you with all the caregiving. And so we
mm,
don't have that so much. And actually, that many of those women were like a midwife or a doula. I wouldn't say they would actually deliver the baby, but they were there holding their hand, just what a doula does. We do all the advocacy work and we help comfort, do physical changes, like moving around to help the mom, all these things, which, maybe many women don't have today. So that's why having a doula can be really important. And the other important part is that we now have put upon us the medical industrial system
mm.
of unfortunately putting a lot of fear in women. And that's why they don't have confidence, I think, in their own body, and testing, and, all that sort of thing. So the midwives are the ones who are really more mom centered, and they don't do quite as much of that. And I mean, nothing wrong with OBs and OBGYN, but they just tend to be more medical and use that as a resource, and then tend to do more procedures, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to point out, like, people should know who are these people that you're actually going into their office and talking to. um, Many people still think that midwives are not in hospitals, or that they're somehow like barefoot, like, people that are kind of hippie-ish. No, these are very highly trained people, almost as much as doctors, really. I say almost because it's just they can't do surgeries and things like that, but
Right.
they're doing dispensing medications, they're doing certain procedures. So they can do prescriptions, all of that. So it's like educational. We need to let people know that yes, there is an option here. And I do like working with midwives because they are generally more open and will advocate more for the mom to have a doula,
Mm.
both birth and postpartum. So it's just that part of it, that it's important to let, like I said, let mom know all the different tools that she has available. And yes, it can be more difficult because right now insurance is not covering birth doulas. They've had a pilot program here in New York for Medicaid,
Mm.
but it hasn't moved forward in Congress in Albany,
Mm.
for them to put that through. But this is something that I think people should seriously think about now, and people do. There are many people that do come to to people like me and want this service. And I'll tell you, a lot of times it's the partner that's also very, you know, um, thankful that they
Yeah.
had somebody else to help them along, because of course you're going to get the partner involved. And I'm talking whoever that partner is, doesn't matter.
Right,
But
right.
they want to be involved, and they want to do something. They want to feel like they're doing something good, because a lot of times they're sitting there and they're sort of nervous about um, and they don't like to see the woman supposedly in pain. And
Mm.
this idea about being in pain is, I'm not going to say she's not in pain, but it's a different kind of pain. It's
Mm.
not like it's going to be long lasting. I usually say it's anywhere between 12 to 24 hours.
Mm.
And it's for a good reason, right? That baby is trying to make its way out from, um, the vaginal canal out. And that has to happen by labor. There isn't any other way except for obviously cesarean section.
Right. Right.
Um, so it's helping mom realize that if she's calm and she's within her power, she's going to have a much better outcome, a much better pregnancy. And if she's not getting fear put into her and clamming up and then shutting down, that's where unfortunately a lot of labor goes wrong. And then you've heard that term, failure to progress.
Mm.
That's what, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, it's because the woman is just going into that flight or fright state, which is a fearful state. And the body's not going to let her do the work that it needs to do in order to birth. So
Right.
that's
Environment is everything. You need to have an environment to set you up for success, and like not
right.
only for you, but the baby.
Right. And, unfortunately, a hospital is not exactly the best environment because there's a
Yeah.
lot of noise, there's machines, there's people coming in and out of the rooms. So, by the way, one of the things when you do a birth plan, which I know a lot of OBGYNs poo poo, but this is not something that we're going to say is going to be the exact roadmap. What it is an advocacy map, which
Mm-hmm.
means you can say, I don't want all these people in the room. I don't want I don't want an intern looking at me, a resident, whatever. I only want like the minimal number of people that need to be here. I don't want the lights on. I don't, so you can, I mean, there's certain things you can do. I would like some essential oils in the room if that's possible. I would like to have music, you know, and then other things that we go more deeper into as to, well, if they ask you to do something like one of the major things now is to have an epidural. Well, these didn't even exist, 25 years ago. So if you were really in your power and all that, maybe you wouldn't need an epidural. Maybe you would. And I have seen them work when
Mm-hmm.
women are really tired. But again, it's not helpful if a nurse or someone else is coming into the room every 20 minutes asking you if you want an epidural.
Right.
So it's that mindset. It's that sort of starts, and when you're in labor, you really don't have time to make those decisions. I mean, there's time you can take, but
Right.
like to process all that has to be spoken for in the birth plan, like with someone like
Before.
me, way
Yeah.
before. Right,
Way
exactly. So
before.
you have an idea, a plan of what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to talk out with your partner,
Mm-hmm.
to assess the situation when it comes up. And then you can make a decision. But if people are just throwing things at you while you're in labor, while you're having a contraction, you can't do anything else but have a contraction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can't think at that point in time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's just what is very invaluable to having all that kind of planned as much as we can plan ahead of time, and all these crazy things that are happening, like there's now big business in doing inductions. And that is just something that's in many instances totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is. I mean, I was with a woman who had medical problems. She had to be induced at 36 weeks, and I talk about that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different scenario. That's somebody who had some real medical issues that
Mm-hmm.
had to be taken care of. She couldn't continue much further with the pregnancy. Okay. So, okay, that's a medically induced induction. But some of these are just honestly are elective. And it's not um, anything necessarily having to do with the mom's health or the baby's health for that
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding what are these things that the doctor is asking you, these procedures to do. Um, that's important. So that I do touch on quite a few of those. Not every single thing, because there's so many different types of procedures around labor and delivery. But um, I try to get to some of the bigger ones. So I'm just mentioning some of those that have become really apparent. So you can say no. You can say, look, if there's not going to be any harm to my baby and I'm good, I'll just wait. And by the way, I was just reading the statistic again the other day. Only 3% of due dates are accurate. 3%. That's it.
That's it.
So these due dates are just, in a way, kind of silly, because it's not really any time accurate time frame. Okay, because there
Mm.
isn't really it's not totally accurate, unless of course if you've had IVF, it's more accurate, because they know, okay, when the sperm and
Right,
the egg
right,
join. Okay,
right.
but other than that, we're guessing, and it could be a 2-week difference. So to try to induce somebody at what we think is 39 weeks may not be 39 weeks. It could be 37 weeks, or it could be 40 weeks, or it could, you know what I mean? Like, so, and a woman's pregnancy is at least 40 weeks, usually. Now they're trying to say that the baby is, well, it's fully gestationally viable, at 38 weeks anyway. But okay, but there's still stuff that's happening there. Like, the lungs are
Yeah.
still forming and other things. The baby is still growing. So I personally, I don't buy that argument. And so
And I
these are
feel
the,
like sorry to cut you off, but I
no,
feel
that's
like
okay.
it invokes like fear in the woman and like the partner, where it's like, well, we were supposed to be due at 38 weeks and it's not happening and we need to do this and we need to do that, and it invokes this like
Yeah.
frantic, like we have to control the moment situation, when like that's not what the body wants to do. And obviously there are some cases, of course, but 3%? That's nothing.
No. And so what you're just saying is, well, who is controlling this situation here?
Exactly.
The doctor is controlling, or sometimes it's a midwife too.
Yeah.
So that's where it's really important to keep your stance on what you want for yourself and for your labor experience, and that it does not become dictated by the doctor's time schedule, which is
Right.
pretty much which has been happening, and what has happened for not just labor and delivery, but of course a lot of medical procedures. Um, I mean, first of all, labor is natural, and they're turning it into a disease process, which should not be happening, right?
Right.
And so that's number one right there, the stark difference between anything else that may be happening, why you would go into a hospital.
Mm.
So um, then, okay, so now we have this medical complex that wants to be like a McDonaldization of medical care. And what do you have to do for that? Well, you got to pump everything out the same in a time clock fashion,
Mm.
efficiently, and keep it moving,
Mm-hmm.
because we need to get as many people in as possible. So that's the problem. You cannot tell when that baby is really going to come, and a labor needs time.
Yeah.
Mom needs time, baby needs time, labor needs time, and you need time also in between to make decisions. You need time to rest, you need time for other things. So that doesn't fit into that kind of medical model too well,
I
and that's
know.
why there's a lot of pushing going on with trying to make things happen. Like you said, like, oh, we got to do something. And no, we don't have to do anything. Just let mom do what her body naturally does. So
Right.
that's it,
So,
Um,
so speaking of that, one of my friends is in North Carolina, and the experience from first baby to second baby was tremendously different. The first baby, she was in New York. And I believe, but she is the one who told me this, that they basically force you to have the baby while you're on your back. But in North Carolina, she was able to get into any position that she wanted to deliver the baby.
yeah,
And she said it was like night and day, which is
right.
also really crazy. So
Mhm.
can we like talk about that? Because I think this is such an underrated topic. It like blew my mind, actually.
So again, it's another control factor, and this is easier for the doctor to have the woman on her back for examination, for obviously seeing the baby to get it out. Okay, but um, it's not good for mom or the baby because, as we know, gravity needs to help the situation. And once you put mom on her back, she's already leaning backward and you're stopping that gravity. And also what's happening is you're closing the pelvis when you're moving backward like that. Like you kind of can feel your butt kind of move in a
Right.
little bit. So that's not good. And so obviously I've seen that some mostly midwives are more lenient than other um, physicians to helping that situation.
Mm.
Of course, if you have an epidural, you can't move around because it's a spinal tap basically, and sending medication, so it's numbing you from like the waist down. They will take the medication down eventually as you're getting closer to the time of when you're supposed to be pushing, um, but it's still not a great scenario. So this is another control factor where they want you, and the other reason is because of the fetal monitor. They want that monitor on you at all times so they know what that baby is doing. Do we need to know that? No, not really. When I've done, and now I've done a couple of home births,
I was
and
gonna ask you this question.
yeah, so it's a very vast difference. So look, I'm not saying you don't need fetal monitors. You can have fetal monitors, but intermittent. That's
Mm.
what you ask for. Can I get an intermittent? I don't want that thing stuck on me the whole time because then it's not going to allow me to move around. So that's number two. And so, yeah, if you get somebody who's going to, or nurse or whoever is going to say, yeah, sure, go walk around. You know, if it's a Bluetooth, many of them have Bluetooth monitors now, then you can like walk around the labor and delivery unit. Like here on Long Island, Winthrop is one that has one that I know of. I think there's another hospital, I'm not sure which one, but many
Mm.
of them don't have it. So, that's the issue with that. Again, this wanting to monitor everything. Um, and it's not truly helpful. And by the way, these labors would progress faster if you were not on your back. And maybe your friend had experienced that. It was probably number one, more pleasant. And number two,
Yeah.
maybe, well, number two, because she was having number two, it might have come a little faster anyway.
Right.
But,
Right.
it probably was a totally different experience for her just because of the fact she could move around, be on all fours, or, stick one leg up or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, that does happen in the hospital that, again, with some doctors, some midwives, but it just depends on and it also depends on who you get as the nurses in the rotation
Mm.
of who you're with at that period of time, right? When you're admitted to the hospital. So you could have some really great nurses. You could have some not so great. They just want to throw you in the bed and let you lay there, for 10 hours, which is just not good.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It literally goes against like physics in your body and like what it needs to do.
Well, again, they're not thinking of the mom. They're thinking of
Right.
what they have to do. So
Right.
it's about what their job requires.
Protocol.
it's protocol. It's what their job requires, that they have to do all this monitoring and writing it down and, all that, which I understand that's part of, what they have to do. But there's ways that you can work around
Mm,
that. Okay.
mm,
So that everybody can get comfortable and be, part of the process. So,
right.
yeah. So yeah, I'm glad to hear your friend had a better experience. Unfortunately, I wasn't here in New York. I mean, there have been some good situations here in New York, but again, it depends on the hospital, the protocols, the who your, the nurse was that day, all that stuff. And so going to the, home births,
Yeah.
um, so I've been working a little bit with one group here on Long Island, Guy and Midwives, and there's some other practices that do home births,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a completely different experience. You're in the comfort of your home. You can move around. They usually provide like a water tub. You can go in there. The first one I did, she did not give birth in the water tub, but she was in it for a while. The second one, she did give birth in the water tub. Um, and it's just like you've got more power to do what you need to do. Now, granted, when you're doing it at home, and some women are going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that. That's going to just be too painful." Well, again, these two women who I was with, and they were, relatively young, um, but they, you could tell that they were really in their power, in their body, in their mind, that this was the way that they were going to do it. And they had a few tools to help them. One, her mother um, had birthed a lot of the children at home, her brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So she already had that personal experience of her mother birthing at home. And then
Mm,
the other one just wanted to do the birth at home. And she was very good at having a lot of tools at hand. They did a lot, she and her husband did a lot of research. So, you have to kind of plan for that. But
yeah.
no, you won't be getting an epidural if you're at home. Okay. So, but hopefully, because you're going through it with a lot more tools around you, like with someone like me, it's really, I think it's very important to have somebody, no matter what situation you're in, but home birth too, to have a doula present. And then, of course, the midwife comes, of course, more or less just like a doctor does
Mm-hmm.
towards the end. Maybe they're there for like the last, I don't know, 3, 4 hours, maybe. Midwives generally will be there for more hours, depending on who it is. But um, that doctor's not going to be with you for most of the birth. They're only going to be there at the end.
Mm,
So that's another reason why you probably would want to have a birth doula.
right. Someone to help, I don't want to use the word control, but control the situation and set the
Well,
tone for
they're
you.
they're helping you get through the labor. So
Mm-hmm.
again, advocating for you, and that's more, the advocating part is more obviously more important when you're in the hospital and they start wanting to do things.
Right.
But with working with the partner, getting comfort measures like moving her in different positions and hip squeezes. That's a thing. And of course, with me, I use acupressure, which is something that is an added thing because I know the pressure points to use that are going to help release the pressure and the pain that she's feeling. So
Mm,
all that's really important. And then I teach it to the partner. Just they're easy to do. So
yeah.
just show, like, I'll be on one side and the partner will be on the other side, like say with the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
There's hand points. There's some lower inner ankle points, things like that. We can be
Mm-hmm.
doing the pressure points like that to help her on both sides at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And then hip
Mm-hmm.
pressure squeezing is really helpful to get the some of that pressure and pain off her back. So
Mm. Amazing. Like so many gems here. And things that again, so many women are literally not even taught, as they're going through their fertility journey and, their birthing process, labor, like the whole motherhood, the whole thing. I feel like what you just said, the education tool of like, hey, you need to advocate for yourself, get prepared, do the research, pick your team, and figure out what's going to be the most calming environment for you.
yeah.
Set yourself up,
Hmm.
which leads me into the inner goddess. So, like, unleashing that inner goddess.
Hmm.
Let's unpack that. So let's talk about what you mean by that and how it can help with number one, women's health, number two, on your journey through fertility, pregnancy, labor, birthing? How can that help you?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I want women to honor their own power and wisdom
Yeah.
of their own. Like, trust your gut that if you don't feel like what someone is saying to you is right, then you should question it, or like ask questions. You know, about if you go into a doctor's office, and these days they're doing like so many sonograms on, and just say, do I need to have that many? I don't, really want that.
Yeah.
Um, things like that. But I mean, the goddess power is trying to show that you need to take that back. And, we're already gifted with this within ourselves. We just don't know. We don't know. I think there's just so much today, again, that's sort of been in women's faces, not to make them feel good. And I think, again, the Me Too movement, I think that was trying to bring all that back and saying, no, you have the power to say no, particularly with, sexual harassment and things like that. But then in this case, we're just talking about um, patient rights. Like, you can say no to things if you don't want. You have to understand that, that's going to be put in your chart. If you don't want a specific procedure, they're going to note that. But, if it's not life threatening or something like that, I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things. Of course, those things are there for when you really need it. But how to recognize your own feminine love and, your own endurance. You can do this. See, a lot of women don't think they can do it. And that's the first point. So, of course, then I'm going to talk to them about all those things they should be doing around that, like nutrition and health, the things that you do, that you talk about with exercise and, getting ready for that. Because in a way, I've told women this, and I don't think they want to hear it, but the laboring is a kind of marathon.
Yeah.
They have to be kind of not only mentally, but physically ready to endure that. So, but you know what? Again, that's the goddess component, that you can do this. You have to make yourself ready for it. That's all. And there's nothing wrong about that. Yes, birthing is natural and all of that good stuff. But how can you best prepare for it? Now, if somebody is already like an athlete or works out, that's pretty good because they already have that. And then the other piece, of course, is the eating habits. Are they healthy? Unfortunately, a lot of women today they're stressed, they're working,
Yeah.
um, and then they're not eating properly. And we're getting more obesity, and we're getting women who are coming in with blood sugar issues, high blood sugar, and also hypertension. So those are two really can be dangerous during a pregnancy.
Yeah.
And then that's where all the cascade of what I call the cascade of medical intervention starts happening. So like, let's not have that happen. Let's try to back up and like try to make it so that you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And even if you did have to worry about it, people are coming to me. Sometimes they come to me because they want to lower the blood pressure, um, with the acupuncture, so that they don't have to do as much of the drug therapy, or that's going to keep them low so that they can get to term with the baby. Okay. Because that's when doctors start talking about, let's do some intervention. So, as far as, the goddess part, I just saw, I really thought about this later when I wrote the book, but, I was thinking, well, what attributes do some of these women have that I supported? And the first, my first job that I had, which is in my book that I explain, it was a woman who was a little bit older, 37. She was in a second marriage. She had a child with her first husband. Now she was having a second child with her second husband, but it had been 10 years. So, but she was a mature woman, and so I called her Aphrodite. So she was more in her power, as in her own. So Aphrodite is really the symbol of, feminine power, goddess of love, right? Venus is the Roman version of that. If anybody knows their mythology, not that I'm like, super knowledgeable on it, but you know, that's one of the things that I talked about her, that she was confident. She
Yeah.
wasn't worried about any of the stuff. She was with a midwife, which was helpful, but you know, she was fine with all that. And I ended up meeting her at the hospital because she did go into somewhat rapid labor. She was laboring a little bit overnight. And by the time we got to the hospital, the midwife was already there. And she had a 7-hour labor, which was fantastic.
Right.
And the reason I was there was because the husband was from an African culture that didn't really have men involved at all in birthing. But
Mm.
first of all, midwife wasn't having any of that. She was going to get him involved, and he did, and he was fine. And I showed him again some pressure points and things like that. So she was that symbol of someone who is confident, more mature. Well, of course, she had done it before, so that's a little helpful, right? It's a
Right.
little bit scarier when it's your first time and baby, and you don't know what to expect. That's why, again, it's important to know all these things going into it. All right. And then, I speak about another woman who I mentioned earlier, actually, who was in a totally different situation. Had helped her actually through Long Island Doula Association as a wonderful program for women who cannot maybe afford to have a doula. You have to meet, obviously an income requirement and all that. But so I supported this woman, and she was no longer in relations with the father of the child. And so she really wasn't going to have anybody here because she was from another country.
Mm-hmm.
And she had one other friend who said she might, but maybe she wouldn't. She wasn't sure if she was going to show up. So, I was it. I was her support. And then, of course, this person who was her friend did show up later, which was good. But I was there, and I was there with her the whole time. And so she had to be induced.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long labor. It was over 30 hours for that labor. Okay. So you see the
Whoa.
difference in how things can vary so widely with labor, because she got every intervention pretty much. Um, on, fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, she had to have the induction, like I said, because she was having medical issues. But um, she was getting real tired at the end. She did have an epidural. It allowed her to rest. And she was a real trooper. She got through it. And so I wanted to give her a goddess that related to her uh, ancestry, where she came from, which was Turkey. So
Mm.
I kind of, so I researched that and I put that into the book. And, that was a fertility goddess in her culture. And so why shouldn't we have that? And the same as in many cultures, as a giver of crops and all that good stuff and abundance. And that's what we want for women. We want them to feel abundant and, loving, even though you're going through this sort of difficult thing at the time. In the end, look what you get. You get a beautiful baby at the end. And yes, it's hard, and it's going to be hard while you're, after the fact, the postmenopausal part. And that's another part that we also do as birth doulas. We come in after, about a week after, to make sure mom is doing okay and baby is doing okay. And we really now are much more aware of mental health, with postpartum depression, and
Yeah.
giving referrals out if we need to. And we do have a really great resource center here on Long Island, postpartum resource center. And then there's one also in Manhattan, the Motherhood Center. I'm not sure if I said that right, but anyway,
Mm.
there's a couple of places that are, good for that, where they have counseling and everything, and good support. So anyway, it's important for that moms have knowing that they can have these resources like that. And again, just the goddess thing is just me trying to show all these different attributes that women have. And I also tie it into other goddesses, like Rihanna, a
She is
goddess.
absolutely a goddess.
We know about that Rihanna, but there's a different Rihanna.
Yeah, yeah,
She's
yeah.
she's a
Mm-hmm.
horse goddess, and was actually written about by Stevie Nicks, from
Oh,
Fleetwood Mac. So, that just, again, showing that's more of a courage one of real standing firm in your beliefs kind of thing. So I don't know if that helps sort of
I
get
love
the
that. No, that
ideas of
is
all that
beautiful.
across, because I think women need that. They need to feel strong. They need to know that they can do this and that they have the tools to do it. I feel like I'm a broken record saying that, but
It's
that's
true.
just things that I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of it's been dumbed down or taken away.
I agree with
So
you. No, that is so spot on. And, you know, these different goddess archetypes, you can like definitely research them, read Sharon's book, because it can help you tap into a certain aspect of yourself that you didn't believe in, you didn't think you had, giving you hope and inspiration. I'm a huge fan of goddess archetypes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I love
Glad
it.
I could share some of those with you.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom that you would like to leave the listeners?
Um, I don't know. I think it's mostly about trusting in yourself, you know, and being educated and, uh, you know, listening to your gut and knowing that what you think is right is probably right, and that you should stick with it and don't let someone else assuade you, and hope that you have, you know, a beautiful birth experience when it comes to you. You know, make it, you know, as best you can. Really.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
So, where can people find you?
Yes. So I'm in a couple of places. So I'm on, I have my own website. So you can find me at healthyhealingli.com. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm Sharon Pins. You can find me also on LinkedIn if you just type in my name, Sharon McDermott. And also, I mean, if you want to get in touch with me, I am going to offer for anybody here today, like who is listening, who wants to call me, I'll give them a free consultation over the phone, 15 minutes. And they can find my book on Amazon, obviously. And it was a bestseller. Just want to put that in there. And
Beautiful.
also, if you want to get to me by email, you can email me at healthyhealing12@gmail.com, or you can call me. My office is right in Westbury, located in the town of Westbury, right on Post Avenue. And it's 516-410-4297.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For any of the ladies listening out there, I definitely encourage you to take a look at what Sharon offers, because this information is vital, especially if you want to make the process of fertility, birthing, all of the above in terms of womanhood, as seamless as you can, and taking your power back through that. So thank you so much, Sharon. If you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Thank you.